Hello folks, welcome back to Cottesloe as we finish what we started in part one. I say I won't do whole suburbs because it's too taxing, but building an overall picture for us all, I'll press on. Now just recapping from the last time in Cottesloe Part 1, where we examined some of the physical evidence for a mud flood or other such event and some of the historical characters involved. Link in the comments if you missed that. To bring you up to speed quickly, I'll give you the abridged version and also to remind me because I took a week off and I totally forget myself. So the area didn't become Cottesloe until 1886, and apparently until then there was only lime burners, quarrymen and goat herders. It didn't become a residential suburb until after the gold rush era. We started by looking at a grand 1908 Federation filigree style hotel that became a major disappointment after its 1930s Art Deco and other subsequent renovations. It was here we met one of our first characters, Mr. Louis Bowser Cumpston. Then we took a look at the 1905 Cottesloe Beach Hotel, another Art Deco makeover, and we met Mr. Thomas George and Strother Malloy, a very busy West Aussie developer, politician and hotelier. We then looked at a lovely Queen Anne style home on John Street with a belvedere and a candle snuffer roof, which also had below ground cellar and garages. We also examined Tukarua with all its other rather odd stories, including its use as a boarding house, refugee shelter, and its lack of an heir by design. Then we met Septimus Burt, who first built her, had to renovate within the first year, and built a second story after only 4 years. After that, we studied the stunning Le Fanu and drilled enviously over its beauty and grandeur, which has been extensively restored, making it the state's most expensive renovation to date. It also had been initially renovated after only 6 years by the original owner, Mr. Henry Diggins Holmes, another of our highly charitable forebears. The same Mr. Holmes that's responsible for the next on our list, which was the Wern Hostel, situated on some of the most prime land in the state, all in the name of benevolent causes, of course. And then we paid a visit to the Institute for the Deaf, where we learnt to sign the name Perth, and we looked at the architectural works of Wilkinson and Smith. We also met the first teaching staff. It was here we also spotted some errors in the historical images of the building, and we safely called BS on the whole story. Now, as promised, we'll look at the Civic Centre, the best chimney in the suburb, and a couple more items now gone but important to the story thus far. Sit back and enjoy.
Wake up and listen.
Just taking a moment to orient ourselves. This is the land we're talking about for the Civic Centre. It's a huge piece of land, really extensive grounds. And just to give you a rough idea of the size of it, across the road here, similar size. There's 37 tennis courts there, plus club rooms and facilities as well. So she's enormous, beautiful, and that close to the water. So we had, where are we? Cottesloe Beach Hotel and Ocean Beach Hotel up here. So we're back down in the coast.
Built in 1898 by Judge Pennefather, Overton Lodge was originally a large Federation Queen Anne-style bungalow. It is set in spacious landscape gardens with sweeping views of the Indian Ocean. In 1911, The property was purchased by Claude de Bernales, the Western Australian gold mining entrepreneur who named it Overton after his home in Brixton, England. He erected the 4.5-metre-high surrounding wall, and in 1936 he set about transforming the place into an imposing Spanish mission-style building with orange Cordova-tiled roofs and stuccoed walls. Arcades and arched window and doorways contribute to the ambience of the place. The entrance is by way of impressive wrought iron gates set in lavishly decorated gateways. Since 1950, it has been the home to Cottesloe Civic Centre. Melbourne architect Sir Bernard Evans is attributed as the designer. Local architect Sam Rosenthal may also have collaborated. Rosenthal was responsible for the interior panelling of the ballroom, external garden walls and balustrades. It is and has been accessible to the public for over 60 years and is highly valued within the community.
Who said that? Let's have a quick look at Judge Pennefather. Richard William Pennefather, 1851 to 1914. Born in Tipperary, Ireland, he migrated to Melbourne, Australia with his parents and siblings. He studied arts and law at Melbourne University and practiced in both Melbourne and Sydney. He was admitted to the Queensland Bar but never practiced there. He came to Western Australia in 1896 and was admitted to the bar later that year. In 1897 he was appointed the 9th Attorney General of Western Australia, succeeding Septimus Burt on his retirement. Pennefather married Florrie Edith Fulliger of Parramatta in 1897 and had a daughter in 1898. It was then that he built a substantial residence, the Laurels, on top of a sand dune at the northern extent of Broome Street in Cottesloe. In 1901 he was appointed King's Counsel and Acting Justice of the WA Supreme Court. In 1911 he sold the Laurels to Claude de Bernales, moving to Oakham in Swanbourne. During his career he also served 2 separate terms for the Legislative Council until he died in office in 1914, aged 62. He was interred at Karrakatta Cemetery. In terms of context, saint or sinner, this one was interesting and a little bit more poetic than Wikipedia. The West Australia population is essentially cosmopolitan in character, a microcosmos, a small world gathering. With such a class of inhabitants, mostly men of good intelligence, the contest is keen and decisive. In the race, some stumble, some fall, some falter in the rear, and the fittest emerge victorious. And let the egoist remember that there are races among the champions of public good where, also, the best survive the struggle. The second race cannot be termed selfish, for it not infrequently happens that, in a measure, it sacrifices its own good interests to the public good. Into the ranks of the latter, Mr. R.W. Pennefather has entered in Western Australia. He is another of the comparatively young men who have come from the eastern colonies to make his home in the West. I won't go on. If I start quoting John Forrest, I'll have to make a stupid voice. Moving on.
What is the object of building railways and opening up the country? That the country and the people here may flourish.
Okay, so these are the images from the Town of Cottesloe website. I'll just go through them fairly quickly. Stop and pause if you want to look at anything. So, Town Hall and Civic Centre, opened by His Excellency the Governor Sir James Mitchell, 30th of September 1950. The timber panelling inside. The War Memorial Hall, that one. Don't know what the obelisk is on the mantle. I didn't notice that on the first pass. Timber panelling is impressive and rarely seen now. Available for functions. The lounge area. Sorry, some of these are doubled up. The lesser hall, this is the lower level. Okay. Give you a close-up of that stained glass in case there's anything important we need to know. These look like all native plants. I don't know what WSG is. So we've got Justice over here, Blind Justice with her scales, Charity on this side with the cherubs. I'm not sure what that is, holding the flag. And the two eagles, are they eagles? And a lion in the middle, I can't quite read that. See if we can get a bit closer. Nope, it's not gonna zoom in anymore. I've got no idea what WSG is. Okay, so looking at the original house, this one's not showing the tanks, but it is showing a building directly behind there. And this is, I don't know, guessing 8 or 10 feet drop behind this wall. Looking at it from here, I believe this is the summer house that came and went, but that's on the lower level. So this is the original house here. I don't know if it was the other house under this bit and this was added on. I'm not really sure. None of it's particularly making sense. And yes, you want your water tanks obviously in a high spot. But why would you build a house near the sea and then put a 6-foot wall in front of it so you can't see the sea? Especially because it's all levelable. If this was previously dunes, as in the other images, which I'll go through, why would you put the house at the back where you can't even access the view? And so all this extension is blocked by this, and even when they take this away, it's still high. The ground level is higher than the house. Let me see if I can grab another image that shows that. I did take one. There we go. This one that I took myself. So I'm standing up at the top and I'm looking virtually at the roof of the house. So there's no possibility to see the ocean from any of this. But plenty of other spaces that you could have put the house. And then why would you build it on the edge of a hill so it drops away? Yeah, it really makes no sense at all. If you can make sense of it, please tell me how or why, because it just looks absurd to me. The gardens and the grounds are beautiful, but yeah, sorry, it just does not check out, if you ask me. I'll let you make up your own mind. So I was just trying to orient myself in regards to these photos because I think there's something fishy going on here. What a surprise. Just be aware that each of these images has a watermark from the Grove Library and an image number 2 there if you want to go and look at them yourself. For the opening, it would appear that they're here, which I'll get to in a moment, and this is all level. So when it's full up with crowds, etc. But there's an image which says is before this land was developed. But it also says that Mr. Bernales built all the walls before the Civic Centre was the Civic Centre. So looking at the opening, if that's all entirely flat, yes, those people are all sitting, those people are standing, those people are very high up in the air. But this is the part I think I'm looking at. So it's up behind and the tank stands here. So there's the raised bit and this would be where they were presenting. And these trees look not right at all. So if this is just sand dune between, it says between Overton Lodge and Marine Parade, and this is the tank stand as it was before Mr. Bernales did his Spanish mission style renovation on it. It's not all fitting together. This is the house side, so this is the tank side, and there was rock wall around it originally, and the house is on this side somewhere. This one's really got me buggered. Looking at the shadows, it seems to check out fairly well. A bit hard with this watermark, but not really of major consequence. But look, if you look at, again, so that's the up-down bit, and that's the only place I can find near the tanks that does that, goes up, and then as we see on that image, stays high for a short while and then goes back down again. By the look of it, that's a ball, maybe another one of the balls down there in line with that. What's going on up here? Are they buried trees? So these are young Norfolk pines, and you can tell they're young because they haven't fully formed that sort of triangle shape. And as they get bigger, they become more like a Christmas tree. You see them here, they're quite young. So I was looking at the shape of them. They're quite wispy when they're small. And they can be very sparsely leaved or quite dense. I think it depends on water supply. But they grow in that whorl shape, and they grow from the top, and then the bottom branches drop away. That's a good one. They're quite soft. Soft, I mean, as in resilient in the wind. They flow and straighten back up again. You will know it if a frond hits you on the head, though. In which case, the branches look like they're sitting on the ground, and they don't do that. Wow. I don't know. dunes between Overton Lodge and Marine Parade, which is along the waterfront. Not developed until the 1950s, after the property had been bought. Okay, so they did the walls at that end. And they must have done all that. And I still don't understand how those people over this side were so tall. Could be nothing. Could be total hogwash. And just while I'm picking apart photos, I've got some misgivings about this one as well. I noticed these trees all have the shadow. This one here. These ones are kind of underneath them, but where is the shadow from this tree? Even this pole has a longer, very dark shadow, and something is missing there. Also, these shadows look to be at different angles. I was going to point out the walls. The steps coming down this side, that would be where they held the opening ceremony, and this area you can see it's completely flat. Then there's another area down there, then there's another area down here. I don't know which of the walls were original and which were supposedly added later, if any. Maybe the whole lot was buried. Hard to believe anything I look at these days, honestly. Claude de Bernales, 1876 to 1963. Born in London, the only son of Major Manuel Edgar de Bernales and wife Emma Jane Nee Belden, his mother was American and his father Basque. He attended the University of Heidelberg but did not graduate. In 1897, at age 21, de Bernales migrated to Western Australia, drawn by the gold boom. He initially established himself as a machinery salesman, mainly by using his charm and immaculate appearance. Handsome, tall, proud of his origins, and always expensively dressed, he dominated any assembly of men. His appearance was a major asset. In 1903, in Kalgoorlie, de Bernales married Bessie Pickenberry. His salesmanship soon brought modest wealth, and in 1909 he became managing director of the Kalgoorlie Foundry. He became a director of the Hoskins Foundry in Perth in 1912 and settled there in 1915, becoming a lavish spender with an elegance to which most West Australians were unused. His Kalgoorlie residence in George Street was a typical middle-class Federation bungalow-style design in good taste and well appointed, and with servants' quarters at the rear, but not strikingly the home of a very rich man. It has the dominant characteristics of a projecting bay with a gable roof, carved timber barge boards, tall, slender and rendered brick chimneys, bay windows and double-hung sash windows. His first wife, Bessie, with whom he had two daughters, died in 1927. In 1930, he married his second wife, Helen Florence Berry, the widow to his first wife's brother, at St Philip's Church of England in Cottesloe. By 1930, at the peak of his career, he was described as one of the most prominent and influential men in Western Australia's gold industry. De Bernales diversified into mining promotion, and between 1932 and 1935 he formed 20 new companies in London selling gold leases, and he acquired control of the Great Boulder proprietary gold mine. It was during this time that he also acquired several mining leases through defaults by some of his clients. His ability to attract new capital and his self-confidence transformed the West Australian mining industry in the 1930s. In his 10 most successful years, gold production in the state increased from £1,600,000 to £11,800,000, and employment in the industry quadrupled. In 1937, de Bernales constructed London Court, a shopping arcade designed to resemble a 16th century English street. In 1938, he redeveloped Overton Lodge into an ostentatious interwar Spanish mission-style mansion. All during the same period, he developed the Piccadilly Theatre and Arcade and the Plaza Theatre and Arcade. Although he was often feted by local politicians acknowledging his ambassadorial role for the state, even Heritage Perth referred to him as a shifty mining investor. Despite having acquired several properties in Melbourne and Perth, many of his ventures failed and he was finally undone in the 1940s. He returned to England amidst press attacks, litigation and failing health. He became a recluse in his house at Chelsea in Sussex and died on the 9th of December in 1963. In 1949, the Cottesloe Municipal Council bought Bernales' Spanish mansion and transformed it again into the impressive Cottesloe Civic Centre. So that's 3 levels at the back there. This is just an indication of some of the symbology stuff that's there. Is that a Templar cross? And these globe things, studded globes. So they were there when Bernales was there, and that's our former Prime Minister John Curtin on top of an obelisk. And the former Queen Anne gates, which kind of really tick me off with the Spanish style. It's just a total clash. And your red brick. Who would have thought red brick and all there? Okay, moving on. So from the Civic Centre, we're down opposite the Cottesloe Beach Hotel, just 1 block over, for the Hostel Manly. This is she up there. This is just a Grove Library video. If you want to take a look, I'll give you the link. Red brick, white stripes, typical big veranda, same style of chimneys. It's not a particularly good image. So it was a hostel accommodation, housed children during the war from the UK who were put to work in the kitchen and dining room. That's having its white phase, as everything in Perth seemed to do before they demolish it. Gets painted white. Some of them come back to colour. And this was supposedly a later extension. And the beach just down here where the pines are. Notice there's something a bit weird going on in the sky there too. Not sure what that's about. Okay, so moving down to the beachfront area. Can't see it on that map. There we go, where the breakwater is. Another important feature of the suburb that is now gone would be the jetty. Now, if the connection between Fremantle and Perth was cut because the Fremantle Bridge was destroyed by flooding, apparently, at some point, was Cottesloe actually a shipping point? It did make me wonder, given the size of the jetty. But supposedly conceived of in the 1890s, we know the reasons why you would build a jetty, didn't happen until 1899. They initiated the move. Then they worked out how they could afford it, and it didn't happen until 1906. Where did I see that? It wasn't built until 1906. 1906, and was completed in August. Major attraction Repairs were carried out from time to time as winter storms took their toll. However, in 1914, an inspector found the pier unsafe. It had been weakened by a wood-boring mollusk, the teredo worm, and by 1923 several piles were missing, so the jetty was shortened. Improvements and extensions were being considered in 1925, but July storms again caused damage and parts of the jetty were cut away. The council sought help from the government to carry out repairs. The government agreed, provided that the council undertook payment of the cost within 12 months, whatever. I don't understand how it could only stand for 8 years before it has major problems. I mean, I don't know about where you live, but you see, often see some of these old jetties and the piers are still standing 100 years after the jetty's gone. You know, they've just stopped maintaining it or stopped needing it, and the piers are still there. So in the end, it was blown up. But I'll pop some other images in. They've tried to sort of show where it was and what's there since. The images are quite impressive, and I don't think we really need to consider the diving jetty. It's probably just another tall story, but it came and went within a couple of years as well. So come back and have a look if you're interested. I'll give you the link. Oh, and the ferry to Rottnest used to stop at the jetty as well. So she was a pretty substantial jetty to last such a little time. So from the Cottesloe history page here, also part of the Grove Library, we have these augmented images. So this is pretty much as it is now, with the breakwater which turns towards the north, as I showed you on the map. And then what was there previously was this boardwalk which joined on to the original jetty. That mini. So I'm guessing 70s maybe for this photo. And then joining the two images together, you can see where the jetty kept going out this way, where the breakwater turns north, and it's a pretty impressive boardwalk. Boardwalk is very much a thing from days gone by, isn't it? We certainly don't have much of them now. Then looking north on the boardwalk. So the boardwalk takes you virtually all the way to this building, which was the old, what's it called, the bathing pavilion. That's what it's called, a pavilion, which has a few interesting details. I'll pop some demolition photos in there. I couldn't really see anything of use that would tell us anything important in relation to the evidence that we're looking for. And whoops. So that's what's there now, the tea rooms, which looks like a total rebuild as far as I can tell. And then the two join together, so they're not sure. They actually state that they're not sure if the positioning is right for that one. I'll just drag up the demolition images. So I thought the portholes were interesting, and the little, I don't know if that's a light or something on top. It doesn't look like the style of architecture that we're looking for, though. Sorry, is that out of the picture? Built in 1929, demolished 1982. Just over in the golf club, we have Catledge with its pseudo-Norman tower, built by Frederick North Member of the original Cottesloe Roads Board, served as secretary to Premier Forest before Federation became the golf club, and they demolished it to build a new golf club. And back up the hill here, we have also missing in action this one. All I can see is massive amount of chimneys. There's a roof that's probably quite pointy and has been cut off there. Formerly Abbeyfield, but I can't find any more information. I certainly can't find any more images. And I simply couldn't leave without looking at this one. It's kind of at the southernmost tip of Cottesloe, so we've got the Foundation for Deaf here in Wern. It's a little bit special. The old cable station, now the McCall Centre, built in 1926 to replace a 1903 wooden structure. The former cable station is a utilitarian structure with classically influenced elevation treatments. It is an imposing structure set high in the foredunes. It is distinguished by its simple lines and symmetry, coursed rubble-like limestone piers, rendered brick walls, small paned windows and tiled roof. High arched limestone foundations raise the brick building to a double story. The upper floor is colonnaded and arches are repeated at either end. The understory, now filled in with doors and panelling, was an important area for the telecommunications station. So that one's still there. I don't actually think the building is being used at present, but it's still standing. It has a future. Getting to the skinny end now, folks. I had to give this one a special mention. This one is on the opposite corner to Tukarua, so in that line, Belvedere, Tukarua and then Le Fanu. I have to just point out this tower. It's pretty special. Not sure if there's anything to report under here. It may just be built into the slope. Built in, tell me when it was built. Of course, Gold Rush, 1890s. Some more images of it inside. This must be up in the tower. Supposedly belonging to a retired sea captain who wanted to watch the ships. Okay, I'm just throwing in this image of the Ocean Beach Hotel as well that I missed previously. It's not as bad, but it's still pretty bad. See part 1 if you want to hear all about that. And this is just a couple of images because it's another lovely tower of the Salvation Army Girls' Home, or Kia Ora, which is a Maori greeting from New Zealand. Go figure. And on to Wingrove, last but not least. Okay, so our last piece of real estate for the day is 26 Salvato Street, known as Wingrove. This one purely because after looking at almost everything in the area, I was driving up from Le Fanu and I saw the chimneys and I just couldn't help myself. They are by far and away the most outstanding chimneys in the area, and you can choose the pots or the no pots. They're both beautiful, and special mention to Wingrove. Purely for the chimneys, you are the winner. So when I was recording Cottesloe Part 1, and I went looking for an image that would help represent what I was thinking, you know, the attack of the benevolent societies and that concept of, I suppose it was something akin to the Velveteen Rabbit that I was thinking of, or my childhood toy, Woofy, who was in such a state that Mum eventually had to hide it away because it was falling to bits. And it was kind of a sarcastic thing, but I found this particular website, Love These Pics, and after 20 minutes of image searching for this kind of representation of a well-loved but now abandoned toy, I found this one, and as so happens, suddenly a whole other rabbit hole opens up, and the timing was just incredible. There's on that exact page, that same website, I found these images. Now it's actually in Wikipedia, so you can have a look at it there, but there's probably plenty of other better references. Basically, it was a diamond mining town driven by the enormous wealth of the first diamond miners. The residents built the village in the architectural style of a German town. Yeah, okay. So that's the official story. And these were the images that I looked at, and I was kind of thinking to myself at the time, you know, am I looking at nothing in Cottesloe? Is it just very old houses, not particularly mud flood of any kind, but the abandoned thing, the buried thing kind of is there. And I came across these images and just sort of went, what, you know, what's the timing like? So have a look at this website if you're interested. Absolutely fascinating. And there are numerous rabbit holes to go down. Just on this site alone, there's so many different articles and photos. Just fascinating. I'll get to the bottom of these. But if you look up the town itself, hang on. Gosh, look at them. These rooms full of sand is what really got my attention. I sort of went, is that what I'm looking at in Cottesloe? That something happened to the population and it was just left there rotting until somebody came and took it over. So if you image search Kolmanskop, or however you say that, there's just amazing photos. And it is a tourist destination in Namibia, and very haunted. And it's just been sitting there getting buried in sand for since World War II. So I'll leave you with that. That's kind of where my thinking was at. So fascinating stuff. Thanks, everybody. Catch you next time. I don't even know what's coming up yet. I will come up with something very soon. I've got so many ideas how to narrow it down. See you next time.